Good afternoon. Welcome back to United TV for all your latest Manchester United news. And we're going to be covering the latest on Ederson because I thought this was going to be done deal wrapped up today. Medical part two. I think the preliminary medical in New York, probably about a week ago now, or maybe a bit longer ago. And it was always going to be that Ederson was always going to have a second part of his medical. There's a bit more information coming out. And I think with the signing of Santos, there's a few people thinking it's not going to happen. We did talk about this yesterday. And I think there's a little bit more information, but people at the moment are, I suppose, they're wondering whether, given that you're signing Santos and that's a done deal, given that Manchester United are now looking at Kone as well, who's a little bit younger than Ederson, did a very good job last night in the French midfield. I don't know, it's making me think now, if there is a question mark over any sort of injury issue, we have seen this in the past with a lot of players that this is one thing Man United need to be careful of. I'm not going to try and exaggerate and say there's a really bad injury. Like we know the situation regarding Ederson. He had a meniscus tear. It looks like he recovered from that. He's featured in the World Cup, albeit in a rather diminished role, but he has been playing in the World Cup, so he recovered from his injury. He's been playing for Brazil. The question I think a lot of people are looking at is maybe in a bit more detail is when you start getting knee injuries, and this is going to be like a general point as well, when you start getting injuries, and then you will recover from the injury. You then maybe get subsequent injuries. Are Man United actually looking at that? Let's see how Ederson recovered from this injury. Let's see and what's the likelihood that the next injury will be more severe, whether we'll get future damage like the meniscus. I think when you get some tears, you lose tissue, and maybe they're looking at that in detail and trying to predict maybe if you're going to give Ederson a 5-year contract, which I think is what would be on the table, are you looking at thinking, actually, maybe this isn't a good deal after all. Like a 5-year contract, if it looks like maybe he's one or two more injuries away from starting to have more significant problems. But I think this is the point of medical, that if you're looking at a player that hasn't necessarily had a significant medical issues in his career, like if you look at the last few years, Ederson does not miss a lot of games. So you don't look back and go, right, Ederson, injury prone player, but maybe start looking at injuries. He is a physical player. And I think that's probably what we're looking at here. He is a player that does get stuck in. He is a player that gets involved in a lot of challenges, a lot of duels, physical, strong player. The thing is, at some point, injuries will take effect. But I'm just saying that this is why the story's being put out there. I'm not saying by any stretch that I think the medical will be off. I'm just saying that Manchester United have to do the assessment before they make the decision. I think one thing we would say is, if you're looking at transfers as a general thing, usually you go, right, here we go, we've seen Fabrizio, we've seen Ornstein, there's a medical scheduled, it's genuinely a formality. In this case, we're just saying it might not be a formality, that there is kind of something there they want to look into. And again, it might be a judgment call. It might be that you just look at it, go, right, we'll look at the call, see what's going to happen. And yeah. Welcome to the chat though, everybody. Hope you're having a good day. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and also getting involved in the conversation. And I will be doing an extra stream tonight that's going to be 6:30. I'm joined by legend of the channel, Helgi, representing Norway, but we're going to be talking about Manchester United, but we might slip in like a few conversation points regarding Norway versus England because he is Norwegian, but it's going to be Manchester United based as well. And it'd be nice to get a different opinion on the channel as well. But I hope everyone's having a good day, and I'll just go through a few of the comments as well. And say Andres Santos has completed his medical. I think that wasn't in doubt as well. The question mark I've got though is, does the Santos deal, does it change anything with the Ederson deal? Like, is there any? I know a lot of people were trying to work out what is Manchester United's strategy. I mean, if you can work out what Man United's transfer strategy is, then you're probably in a very small group. But is there a hint that maybe Santos is a signing based on, right, maybe we're a bit 50-50 on Ederson. Let's get Santos in quick, because if Manchester United pulled out of Santos, I did actually see this mentioned as well, that if Man United appear to be desperate, the price might go up for Santos. So maybe it's a case of Ederson's kind of like in the balance. Let's get Santos in quickly, and then Santos is going to be like the first signing, it seems, and then maybe they can have a bit more thinking time regarding Ederson. Maybe Kone is a pivot from Ederson as well. Because I'm just thinking, if you're going to get Ederson in and you start looking at Kone and Santos, suddenly you're looking at younger players with potentially a higher ceiling. So at the moment, I think Ederson feels like a backup. I suppose he's still a backup, but we've got younger players. We haven't necessarily got the most experienced players around him. So maybe Kone is going to be maybe a better option than uh, trying to get Ederson. You look at someone that, again, say I haven't watched Kone loads, but if you're going to sign one player from Serie A, maybe there's a question. But that's why I thought I'd put a poll in the comments to say, which one would you rather sign? We know the price for Ederson's going to be 35 million. We know the price for Kone will be a bit higher. I think it's going to be maybe 50 million euros. So currency wise, it's not going to be crazy. It's not going to be a massive difference. I think the salary would be a little bit better as well. Gaz is saying no. Check Kone's injury history. I did see a couple of people posting injury history with Kone. I suppose the question is going to be, do you think it's going to be reoccurring? I think it's probably the same question for both players, then, isn't it? Have a medical assessment. Do you think? I remember people talking about Harry Kane and saying that a few years ago Harry Kane was perceived as having like some injury issues, but he overcame those. And no, I think it's definitely a thing worth talking about. And I'll say this that this is one thing that I think most fans will agree on is whichever player we're signing, regardless of the price. I mean, it doesn't really matter how much they cost. If they're injury prone, is
You've got
whichever
to
player
walk
we're
away from
signing,
it.
you got to look at it and say, if Man United are going to sign a midfielder, and we don't tend to sign loads of players, do we? So I don't think Man United can afford to get anyone that's remotely injury prone as well. So I would rather pay extra for a player that you know has a incredible injury history, and that for me would be something United need to look at. But we'll see because if I can't remember actually, if anybody knows of an example where a player's failed medical. I mean, involving Manchester United, I can't really think too much, but there must be instances where players do fail medicals. I mean, otherwise, what would be the point in having them? But I can't think of too many high-profile ones where things have been revealed. I think Man United have got an idea. If anything, maybe this would mean that and Edison would be on quite a low contract as well. Kate says it's happening. He's coming. I think he is. Again, I think he is. But what I'm doing here is when people see loads of rumors and loads of things posted, all I'm saying is this is the reason why. And it's not necessarily that Edison's not injured now, but he's had a meniscus tear. People that know more about meniscus tears than I do are saying that you remove tissue from the knee, and it's okay for a bit, but you can then get more risk of arthritis, more risk of actually getting less tissue in that area as well. So you could have more significant knee problems. So I think it's more prediction of is it a risk to sign him on a 5 year contract? I think most people, let's be realistic. Most people see Edison as a short term signing. So I don't think anybody thinks Edison's going to come in and do the sort of job that Tchouameni or Anderson would have done. But I still think that you need to make sure that he's able to play a lot of games in a high tempo league, a physical league like the Premier League. So I think that's something that Man United have got to be. You got to make sure that it's not. There's no point getting Edison and then saying right he can only play one game a week because at some point we might need him to play say 2 games a week or three games in 10 days. So the demand's going to be pretty physical, and I think that you've got to make sure it's just about doing. We said this in the past loads of times, haven't we? That if Man United get another Mason Mount, it's we can't have that happening. And the only good thing about this is that it's a bit of a cheaper deal. I know he hasn't got long left on his contract, so there's a reason why it should be cheaper. And maybe the salary is going to be pretty low. But I'm kind of I'm 50-50 on this deal. I think with the Edison deal, I've always said, Edison is like useful, good player for depth, but you'd have to look at it and say our first options have to be better players probably. So let me go through a few of the comments as well. So Lucky Singh says we're working on signings in the background. We need to start working on these signings a bit more in the foreground, don't we? And actually get some of these signings actually through the door. I mean, if I hear Man United are interested in another player I've never heard of again, I'm going to start losing a bit of patience. Hex says it's literally like removing a washer between two joints. Not good. I think I remember. I know people, like family members, that have had cartilage issues, and I think it's one of these things where you can recover. This is what I'm saying. You can recover. You can play, but you always start. The level in which you're able to play at does start dropping. So, and what it could be is as well regarding this sort of injury it could be that you start getting good days, bad days. So it sounds a little bit like an age thing, doesn't it? So you get good days, bad days, and you'll see that maybe Edison's going to be absolutely fine, and maybe in the short term it's absolutely fine. I'm just thinking like a couple of years down the line, are we going to see more issues? So this is why I'm not saying United will pull out, but we'll find out today. I think like we will find out. And as Stephanie said, if you're watching as well, please don't forget to put the thumbs up, like Stephanie's saying. Like, click the like for YouTube. And so Sarah's a good player. Are you making? I was making comparisons with that. So your Linky's available for around 20 million. Plays 6, 8 right back. And say Brighton wanting to replace Belieber. Maybe an interesting dynamic might be that we talked about Edison quite a lot. Do people just a yes no question before we move on to other stories? Do you think he's definitely going to sign? Like, I think the Belieber one is like another chapter. Yeah, I did see this comment and say this does read a little bit like an Amazon documentary of like, yeah, we need to find out. We're going to find out today, though, won't we? So there's not going to be any sort of cliffhanger, is there? I remember actually I did the stream yesterday, 1 p.m., and it was pretty much like I think the thumbnail was like deal off question mark. It's like I thought we were going to find out yesterday about the Edison deal. So I think as impatient Man United fans as we are, at least we're going to find out pretty soon. And I think as soon as Anderson is yes or no, if Anderson is no, does that mean that Man United suddenly move to someone like Kone? And just to cover like the Kone story, are Man United is this essentially like is this a backup for someone like Edison? Because looking at okay, I know he's had injury issues in the past, but again, this is probably reflected in the price. They're looking at French international midfielder, played well yesterday. I think people were pointing out a couple of good long range passes, but to be honest, like France was so dominant against Morocco, I think it's quite difficult to make big assessments based on one performance. But I think he certainly looked like a good player, competent player, and it does seem like a bit of a weird coincidence that Manchester United are we replacing Casemiro with the player that's going to replace Casemiro in the international team in Santos? Are we like pivoting from too many with the player that's effectively replacing too many in the French national team? I mean, it seems to be like, is this the new way of Man United scouting? Let's see which teams, what players are going to represent their country, the next generation. It does kind of make sense, though. I know there's going to be. I don't think I can really mention any signing actually without getting some negativity. So even when we covered Tonali, there are some people liked him, some people didn't. We talked about too many. Most people liked him, but still quite a few people didn't. I think if we're talking about Manchester United moving for Kone, is this a story that's going to happen? Is this something that's emerging recently? Because it does seem to be that some of the stories we saw a month ago went very, very quiet. And then some of the stories which were recently emerging, like with Santos, it was rapid. And I think with this deal as well, he's obviously going to be, I think it's going to attract interest from multiple teams because of the way France are playing. And whether you attribute that to Kone, I guess is subjective. I think certainly with him coming into the midfield and replacing too many, I'd have to say France were dominating possession most of the time. It didn't look like there was a sudden drop off, did it? It didn't look like when we saw Man United last season and Casemiro is not available, we put Agati in there. We see the difference on the pitch. And I think watching France, too many's not available. We know what he can bring. You put Kone in there. I don't think we see a drop off. So I think that's probably the biggest compliment I can give him. So, and I think the price is about 43 million, like 43 million. So yeah, it could be something like if you saw the France Morocco game last night. I know it's a one-off game, and a lot of people probably don't watch Roma. A lot of people will probably watch different players. I think most people know what Bardi can do. I think in terms of that one, I think we know what Camavinga can do. We know what Tchouameni can do. We know what the high-profile players can do. Were you impressed by Kone? And would you like? I know there's an injury question mark over him for some people, but again, that's what the medicals would be for. So hopefully that would be a way of actually assessing it, see if he's fully recovered from the injuries. I think with some injuries, like people are saying, that players get an injury at a young age does sometimes, for me, wave a big red flag because it does mean that they might be more subjective, more likely to get worse injuries. But again, there are examples where things can be fixed and it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. But again, this wouldn't be a massive money signing. So we're talking about £43 million, 50 million euros. It's probably price wise at the moment about exactly the same, like exactly the same as Agate, and Agate was a couple of years ago. So price wise, it is pretty cheap. That's why I was thinking, regardless of whether I'm enthusiastic about this deal or not, I was thinking this does feel a bit like a Glazer deal, doesn't it? It's somebody that's going to come in, international experience already. You know, they're going to be competent. It's going to maybe it takes a bit of time to adapt to the Premier League. It's going to be a lot faster than Serie A. It's going to be more physical, but against the dynamic mobile midfield in Morocco, looked like he was okay there. So I don't know. It's one where I can see this being a Glazer signing more than I can see it being a Manchester United fan signing. Ian saying Roman nowhere near the level. I think yeah, this is why I would be a bit surprised. I would be a little bit surprised if Manchester United bought Ederson and they bought Kone. I'd be a bit surprised because they're both from Serie A. I think we know that there's going to be probably a slight risk with signing players from a different league. Like, say, if you're looking at, I think you can do it with like one player maybe. I think everybody knows Bawadi is going to be absolutely fine. We can see what he can do. I just think it would be a bit unusual. And with Santos, you've got the Premier League player. Okay, admittedly, he hasn't played a lot of Premier League games, but I think when you start going to Kone and you look at Kone or Edison, like this is what I was saying. Who would you rather sign if you're gonna have to sign one of those players? Because at the moment, I think Man United will end up one of these players. I get the feeling that Edison is likely, but what if Manchester United are thinking, regardless of the medical, do they think that it's actually a better offer, like a completely better offer? Have anyone? I say no. I don't think people have forgotten about Delit, but Delit's not available for quite a while, is he, after his operation? So I don't think we're going to see much of Delit this calendar year. I'm not sure when exactly it's going to be, but no, we'll have to see. I think with Delit, we don't even know the nature of it, do we? Delit was like, I suppose Delit was like reasonably cheap, wasn't he? About 35 million, but it's still, it's not ideal, and it does make you question. That's why I was saying it does make you question why some of these medicals, Delit, Mazraoui have had injury issues in the past. They had medicals, it was fine. If Edison doesn't sign for Manchester United, I'm not sure it's going to be 100% medical related. I think it might also be that Man United look at options, go, maybe we can get a better option than him. Almac says no one starts this French team without being a quality player. And say, look at the quality. Yeah, I would agree with this one as well. That France is probably, I would say France is probably what the best team we've seen in the World Cup. I mean, this is kind of my opinion. But if watching the World Cup, I watched a lot of matches in the group games. I think I've watched most knockout matches, and France just looked like a level above everything else I've seen. I mean, Spain ground out results. Morocco looked like a really good team until they came up against France. It just looks. I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because when you look at it, the team's playing really, really well, and the role for, say, the midfield players. I agree with you, Al, that you don't get into that squad without being unbelievable, do you? That you've got to be a top quality player. Yeah, I wouldn't really disagree with that. The level of the of Serie A isn't what it used to be. A mentality small club only pick cheap and mediocre players. I would say this one that you're right about him being cheap, but I don't think you can use the term. It depends which player you're talking about. I don't think you can use the term mediocre for someone that's playing in the French midfield in the World Cup at this point in time. Like, there's no way. Like, we can question whether Kone has an injury issue, but I don't think we can call a French midfielder in that team mediocre. You got to be like pretty good. I would say the caveat is with Rabiot that I've never been a massive fan of Rabiot, but it works well in that team. They're very well organised. I think it does go to show that with the French team, I suppose also you've got good players across the pitch. They can play a high line. They've got I'm trying to think what is France's weakness at the moment. I think the weak because I don't really see significant weakness. Clean sheet against Morocco. I'm trying to think. Did Morocco get a shot on target? It was pretty dominant, and you could say that France didn't look like they got out of second gear. So I was expecting a good game, and I think I just saw. I think I just watched a routine win last night where France just did what it took to get through the game fairly comfortably. When they needed to, they stepped up a little bit, but they looked like they were playing within themselves. So I think the French team, like regarding whatever you've seen so far in the results wise, I think they're just playing what they're just doing what it takes at the moment to get through fairly comfortably. So I think it's going to be a massive problem for anyone that meets France, possibly England. We'll have to see. Almac saying you called the lit injury prone, people got angry and then denied it. And how I think this one, like Al, I think a reasonable amount of people said the lit was injury prone, and I think maybe that's reflected a bit in the price. And so, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so for people talking about Rabiot's mum, I think if you know, you know, don't you? That is it. His mum causes problems, doesn't she? I don't know if it's like she's not his agent or anything, is it? But there's something there where we said, to be honest, I think there's better options out there than Rabiot, but it's like having I'm trying to think like Christophe Dugarry, and there used to be players in the French team that were just in there because it just worked in the French national team. But at the time, you wouldn't necessarily want those in your Premier League team. So I think Rabiot might be one of those players. Works well for France, but let's be honest, he's surrounded by world class players, isn't he? So he's got too many Elise, Mbappe, Dembele. I think at the moment, if you're playing in the French midfield, I'm not saying this is like in any sort of derogatory way for like too many and Kone, but if you're playing in the French midfield, you don't have to make like the runs, you don't have to make the line breaking passes. Sometimes you just have to keep it simple because the players in front of you are ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. I would say though that in terms of like speed of movement, passing, Rabiot was doing very well, and I think Kone also good. So do people watching French national team, does this change any sort of issues? And Marmok saying, you think Kone is injury prone, so they're not serious injuries like Mount and Delit. They do keep him out for weeks. Now, I think it's definitely, it could be the reason why we're looking at, say, a cheaper option. Like, how much would you think too many is not for sale? And we said this, yeah, it was always going to be unlikely. But too many is obviously staying at Real Madrid, presumably on an even bigger contract than the one we knew quite a lot about before. And he would have cost probably 105 million. So does it make, is it okay that Man United go for Kone if he does have like kind of this like doubt over him? And it might just be that, maybe he's one of these players that does pick up niggling injuries and it does affect him a little bit. I suppose for this one is it okay for Man United to sign this sort of player if he's going to be, say, £43 million, and if he's going to be presumably on not a ridiculous contract? So I think in terms of like contracts, how much he's getting paid at Roma, it's not going to be insane, is it? I think someone, now people will have ideas of how much he's going to get paid, but I think he fits into the wage structure absolutely fine. The question is going to be is that, if he cost 100 million, then maybe Man United's scrutiny of his injury issues would be, a bit more important. Like for example, if Elliot Anderson had these sort of injuries, there's no way, and other sort of doubts, there's no way he's going to cost 115. So, Kate says, what was the point of finishing third? Have we benefited? I think with this one probably is going to be. I've seen a lot of meltdowns from Chelsea fans and a lot of people talking about Chelsea. They're really not happy that Man United got Santos. So Manchester United fans do not seem to be, maybe a bit divided actually. I think some Man United fans are quite happy with Santos. A few are a bit underwhelmed. But I think that's one where I think a lot of Chelsea fans saw him as one of the best players at the club. And it's a bit, I suppose, it's a bit like Manchester United a couple of years with Mainu. A lot of fans saw Mainu as like the next player that's going to come through. And I think Chelsea fans saw the same thing with Santos, and they're not very happy that we got him. But in terms of this one, it's very difficult for me to go, right, this is a disaster because the transfer window is not over. So as things stand, it could well be that in a couple of hours' time, we could be, here we go, Ederson, second deal, done. I think we got backup goalkeeper Darlow that's, again, it's a backup goalkeeper. It's not Bindia. That's probably the plus point there. But it's not going to be massively exciting news. The exciting news would be if Manchester United got Lewis Hall as a left back option, if Manchester United then did get an attacking option, and maybe if we're looking at, if we pivot away from Ederson, move for Kone, and then go for Alex Scott, maybe that's going to change people's opinions a little bit. But I think there's going to be a lot of things. The benefit in finishing third is probably teams like Chelsea. Santos wants to leave Chelsea. Chelsea are going to have to reduce their squad a bit because it is quite bloated. And it does mean that some of the players are going to want to leave Chelsea. And it seems that Santos actually decided to join Man United over Newcastle, even though Newcastle offered him a bigger contract. So, in terms of that, one of the advantages of finishing the Champions League is that Manchester United will at least get money in, and it has to be, we have to finish in the Champions League every single year, really, to be at the top table if that's where we want to be. If you want to get the next Anderson or the next too many in a transfer battle, Manchester United need to be a regular Champions League participant and maybe be someone that can be in a title race as well. So I think finishing third does have its benefits, but at the moment the transfer window looks, it's difficult to assess it, isn't it? Because we don't know. So Edison, so bin Edison off, says Tiger Claws Alex, and says there's quite a few good centre midfielders without injury concerns. So I did see something as well. I think that there's that another deal fell through. I think Atletico Madrid pulled out of the deal to sign another midfielder we're interested in. So it could be that there are people available. Alex Scott is obviously available, but he would cost about £80 million. So I get the thing. It would be if Manchester United don't sign Edison or Kone, then it feels a bit like we've gone through what we're the 10th of July. It would seem that we've gone through I know quite a lot of speculation and transfer stories and targets discussion to end up with just one player, which is essentially one of the I don't know team players on the periphery of Chelsea. Although there is about 100 of those. No, it would be a bit of a strange one, wouldn't it? So, Lucky Singh saying, yeah, meltdowns possibly towards owners. Yeah, what do you try to type, Gregory? If you just retype it, I think if you sometimes that YouTube does mess up people's comments a little bit. I don't know why. That is, was a left field option. Yeah, he was talked about quite a long time ago. Didn't Real Madrid try and buy him back, or there was some, or try and get him back? No, I'm just wondering, do you think there's any potential that Manchester United do something crazy on that? Is there a chance that, like, in terms of this one, is Kone suddenly going to escalate? So I remember talking, say, about maybe about 4 or 5 days ago, and I was talking about Santos when the story first broke. And I'm starting to think now, if a story breaks and Man United say it's going to be a difficult deal and it's going to seem like he's going to be a world class player or it's going to be £80 million plus, I'm probably going to dismiss it because I don't think it's going to happen. If Manchester United are linked to a player like Kone, and you look at it, I'm just looking at it from like if you try and predict what do the Glazers want, what are Ineos going to do, what is the Manchester United transfer strategy, then Kone makes sense, not from a fan perspective, but it makes sense. You know, he's 25 years old, playing for the French national team, 43 million, not going to be crazy. Wage demand's low, and it seems like very similar to Edison, similar sort of age, slightly younger, both kind of on the fringe of the World Cup for the respective countries. So you got experience there. Both are going to be on low salaries. So it seems that if your criteria was financial, everything makes sense, doesn't it? I think for fans, like fans' criteria for the transfers coming in is different. We're looking at it thinking, come on, Man United, like, you've got to be in a title race. You've got to try and win the league. And I think that's why we start looking at it thinking, these transfers, are they good enough? And I think from like an Ineos point of view, they fit into the wage structure they want to try and do. And if they can get, I suppose the big question is going to be, is this going to be enough to at least match what we did last season, put in a good run in domestic cups, not get embarrassed in the Champions League, and not drop? No, significantly though, the main thing's got to be Man United cannot start dropping down the Premier League. Like we've seen it over the last decade, big investment when Man United finish badly and get back into top four. As soon as we get back into the top four, we seem to then think the job's done and not invest in the squad. And that's something that people have been, very angry about over the years. And I think that's why until Man United prove they're doing things differently, there's always going to be a bit of skepticism about a lot of things. And Vril says you're going to go full conspiracy theorist mode. What if Edison was never on the cards, but just fake news for the fan base? Well, if Edison's never on the cards, Manchester United have really messed this guy around because he was pretty close to like done deal to Atletico Madrid, which I think would have been a good move as well. And if that's the case, then I don't know. That's probably pretty out of order if that was the case. I'm wondering whether Santos was always like a. I think Santos might have always been a deal, and maybe like if Man United just made an offer for Edison and hadn't gone through with the medicals and maybe got Santos done first, maybe Santos was a deal that Man United wanted to do when it seemed we weren't really what's the word, under pressure to get a deal done quickly. So maybe if Man United didn't make a move for Edison and Santos was our first deal, maybe Chelsea would be like, right, you're kind of desperate for midfielders and hike the price up. Maybe, no, maybe probably another conspiracy theory. Like he's saying with his conspiracy theory that we're going to be buying Sander Berg. Sander Berg is what? Is he 28, 29? I mean, is Sander Berg going to take us to the level we want to? I mean, I think with Santos, we can all get on board with Santos. He was under 18s, under 23s captain with Brazil. Clearly, he's got a high ceiling. Sanderberg is not going to find an extra level, is he? I don't know. It would be a bit underwhelming, but I think if you're going to be buying experienced players, Sanderberg, Edison, Kone, you'd probably pick one of those players, I think. Andy says we can't compete with the sports washing of City and say we're in a rebuild and say it's Arsenal 6 to 7 years to get where. Well, it took Arsenal a long time, didn't it? I mean, Arsenal had a couple of years where they were very low down. I think Man United have got a bit more financial muscle than Arsenal, but have Man United got the owners? Does the ambition match the fan base, and does it match the turnover we got? I don't know. It's for me, it's a bit of a tricky one to compare. One thing I would say, if you're watching live, please vote on the question, which would be your preferred option? So I'm not saying, I do say this, I'm not saying the Edison deal is off for medical reasons, but do you think there's a chance Manchester United might do a cheeky pivot towards Kone, and would Kone be a better deal? If you think Kone is a better deal than Edison, let me know why. Grover says Manchester United not going through with the Edison acquisition is simply proof that our ownership has no honour whatsoever. Do you think, to put it another way, I mean, I think most people are a bit sceptical about them. To put it mildly, what do you think if Manchester United do the medical for Edison? Let's just go back to the Edison story. If we do the medical for Edison and it picks up things where we investigate the knee, if it picks up things where we think actually this isn't great, then that's probably the right thing, isn't it? If Manchester United do the medical and say, yeah, this is not good enough, like your medical issues are a concern, we don't want to pursue the signing, then I think that would be. I think if Manchester United, if they just ditched Edison and moved somewhere else, then obviously I think that would be an ethical consideration. But if you do the medical and the medical reveals a significant problem, then I think that's just the due diligence of the medical. Then for me, it's not a problem. I think that's the whole point of the medical is to highlight these issues. And maybe if you're going to do a medical, they did one in New York. Maybe they should have done a more thorough one in the USA. I'm sure there would be definitely a medical hub where they could do a proper medical and get that done. So I don't know why they would have that issue. Almac says, I think we'll use the medical to get out of a deal for somebody better. It's probably an excuse. Possibly. Would if we the thing is though, if we saw this as well, if we saw Manchester United say, right, Edison deal off, obviously it'd be a bit dramatic on like YouTube, but in terms of like being a sensible Man United fan, what would you think then? Would you be, so part of me thinks if Edison's got an issue that it hasn't been disclosed by Atalanta, And if the medical reveals it to be a significant concern in terms of like, how what you're expecting in the next few years, I think maybe Man United walking away is not a big problem. I mean, Man United going this far and then saying actually we think Coney's a better option is obviously a bit ethically questionable. And yeah, I wouldn't, to be honest, I wouldn't put either scenario past the owners. Jill says Edison has worn a knee strap before, definitely. Yeah, I think the more I hear about this, I'm kind of like I'm not saying I want the deal to fall through. I'm just saying it would be, you know how Man United need to learn from their mistakes. The worst case scenario would be getting another Mason Mount. The only good thing, I suppose, is that the only positive would be that he wouldn't get paid the same salary as Mason Mount. But for me, that's largely irrelevant. If you sign an injury-prone player, you've made a mistake. Marv says we're not going to sign an injury-prone player, and, and it's well, yeah, it depends. If Man United, if it's here we go with Edison, we're not going to be, we're not going to be, yeah, we're not going to get the information from the medical thing, are we? So we're not going to know. Ian says Spurs have shown more ambition. Spurs have bought like quite some decent players. I think with Spurs, they probably Spurs are buying from partly ambition, but I suppose with Spurs, 2 years, two relegation fights, you can't have that happening again, can you? A Big Dog says if Edison fails in medical, why don't we go for Gomez from Wolves? I think the Gomez deal was off as well because wasn't Gomez going to go to Atletico Madrid? I think that deal's off. So potentially that deal's on the table. Potentially it might be the same sort of price as well. So not the worst deal. Debas so he's definitely saying lower fee for Edison if he fails medical or walk away. Maybe with this one, if you're looking at the fee, I think the fee being lowered would be fine. But I think maybe also you want a shorter deal. Like if you're looking at a 5 year deal, maybe we'll see like a shorter deal possibly. But we'll find say Gregory says the Edison deal not going through is simply a very bad look. It would make it look. I think the problem is, I suppose, is that Edison's at the World Cup and it's taken time to actually get him into this country. So I can see why people are annoyed. I mean, it's unfortunately that there's not a lot we can do about it. Is that will we see Edison rocking up at the training ground, Peter and Wingy style? Well, I think he's already there, isn't he? Like he's there for the medical, so I don't think we're going to need to see him. Um, I would probably say that it's a bad look if it's not a professional look, but if you signed a player with injury issues, that would be worse because that's going to be something that now we've had Mason Mount and we've had other players, uh, say like Phil Jones, Luke Shaw, and there's been quite a few players that over the course of their Man United career, it's just this, it's not good, is it? Because you're just essentially having players that are not playing enough football. The thing is that it's going to put a stress on the squad. So forget about Edison. If Edison's not available, then suddenly Santos has to play a lot more games. And the knock-on effect will be Mainoo will have to play a lot more games. So then potentially Mainoo's going to be more likely to pick up injuries because he's going to have to play more minutes. So I think signing an injury-prone player just puts a stress on the squad Man United can't handle. Like we don't have the biggest squad, so I don't think it's going to be very sensible at all. Um, no, I've said I would probably be I would probably take the stance that if I think there's going to be an injury issue, then I would probably not be signing these players again. I mean, people talking about Delit. I don't know what the medical was with Delit. I think a lot of people will look at players that get injured at Manchester United and they'll say, right, Man United are making mistakes signing injury-prone players. I suppose sometimes, if players get injured after joining Man United, like I suppose Lissandro Martinez, I don't think he was particularly injury-prone before he joined. So, injuries are going to be part of football anyway, and particularly in the Premier League, they're going to be part of the game. I think with this one, it's like, injuries you can't avoid, but if there is something that gets flagged up, you can definitely do that. Um, so yeah, I'll say this one. If they're going to start filming, apparently was it yesterday they started filming? but it's probably going to be non-stop drama for Amazon, isn't it? Like Man United is going to be non-stop delivering drama because it's a transfer window, isn't it? And it's going to be a bit of a nightmare, I think. Okay, saying the only logical reason for a delay would be to announce all three. I suppose that is a potential thing, isn't it? There is potential that Man United could be looking at doing a. So I remember, I suppose last year we had a few deals at the same time, didn't we? So yeah, maybe it could be that. So do you think it's a bit? I think it's slightly different, Gregory, but like because Marcus Rashford doesn't have any sort of injury issue, does it? So, and I think wasn't it with Barcelona? Barcelona was always an option, so it was never. I don't think it was an obligation, was it, with that one? But no, I think if Man United decided to ditch Edison for medical reasons, then I think some fans would be okay with that. If they just ditched him for other reasons, I think people. I think whatever happens, this Edison deal, considering it's a cheap deal, seems to have been going on for a ridiculous amount of time. Like I think though, didn't we have like here we go? It felt like weeks ago, and we haven't had anything happen. So let's have a look at the result of the poll and see what people were saying about this one. So if you've got the option of picking one or the other, who would you rather Manchester United sign? It looks like Kone is the favourite. It's pretty close to 50-50, but Kone's slight favourite over Edison. What's the reason for like if you'd rather go for Kone, what's the reason? Is it like you think he's a better football player? Is it that Edison you think potentially is injury prone? If I was going to pick one, I suppose I would say based on like watching France in the World Cup, I don't know, I think Kone could be a decent signing. But again, it feels I think maybe 50-50 is about right for this one. Kone is slightly more expensive. I'll say slightly higher ceiling than Edison. Jules said Ross Harwood reporting Edison is done, medical complete 3 hours ago. So I did see, I think I might have that story. So this has been reported by Twitter account, and I think it's someone that writes for, I can't remember which site it is now, but they are reporting that one. So he was reporting that the medical was done, but there was no other evidence to suggest that it was done. But as DHEX says, breaking news: Edison arrives in medical. Well, so I think with that one, we're going to be getting a lot of like. I think a lot of people do report things that they think they kind of guess things are going to happen to be the first person, don't they? So with this one, when I saw Edison as a Man United player, medical completed, all done, then I don't think there's any confirmation that, and it might well be that this is going to be true, but it could be a bit of a guess. But I don't know. Do you think it's actually already happened, or do you think Man United just hold on to information? I don't know. Uh, so I think this is also one that, yeah, and I think Alex, this is something also that people are going to be a bit annoyed with Atalanta. But I suppose also it's like the thing is, I think everybody knew about his injury. It's not about whether he's been injured. He got injured. He then recovered from the injury. I think the problem with Atalanta is that he's an Atalanta player. He's been an Atalanta player for years. Then the difference is like Atlanta aren't going to be doing like they're not going to do medicals to find issues. Like he recovered from the injury. The question Man United have got is, do we think that there's going to be potential injuries in the future? And it's probably just about is this an indication that it's going to get worse and worse and worse? And Ross Harwood, I did click on it. I think he writes for like how it's like some website. I don't know if it was like 24/7 football or Football Insider. I think it might be Football Insider. So it's just a journalist that writes for that. Quite a decent following on social media. I think it had like maybe 150, 180,000 followers on Twitter. But I think I didn't want to say this was, I didn't want to post this up and say it's a done, no, it's done and it's happened because he wrote this about 3 hours ago. So it felt a bit like guesswork. because no one else had said anything as well. It might well be that it's true, but no, it's I don't know. So are you a bit underwhelmed, Gregory, with the transfer window? I know a few people are probably. I suppose it's. I think people are getting angry already, and maybe I suppose the difficulty is going to be is that do Man United need to get a certain like specific one or two players in, or three or four players in for it to be an effective team next season? And so I think Edison for me seems to be, I suppose, like a less attractive signing than Kone. I mean, Kone is obviously you can see what he's doing in the French team. So I don't know. Felix Nemeka, yeah, I think Nemeka is actually worse than he injury wise. And Jules says Ross Harwood also jumped the gun on Frankie De Jong. What was his take on whether Man United are going to be bought by Qatar? Because that's quite a good indication of which YouTube channels are just making things up. Gyökeres apparently, but did guess Sesko correctly. Yeah, on Red Devil United, we were spot on about Sesko. I think actually Janogy Fjortov was the best source for the Sesko story. So again, it's probably about getting maybe not guessing, but it's probably about picking and choosing the right sources for this one. But I think the Frankie De Jong one, it feels a little bit like Frankie De Jong was a little bit like too many, but too many didn't have as many seasons to run, did it? No, this feels very much like it's if you're buying a house, doesn't it? If you're buying a house and you advertise your house, you don't list every little flaw with your house. Like you don't go, actually, there's a bit of a damp patch there. This bit of roof's not ideal. You probably need to fix this thing in the kitchen. So I think with this one, it is up to the people that are buying to spot the issues. But I think that problem with this Edison story is he's not really injured, is it? It's just a bit of what do you call it? It's a bit of a I suppose it's like a minor injury, like a minor injury. So I don't know. I'll put it this way: if Edison deal falls through due to medical, I will probably, at the back of my mind, think, is that just a convenient excuse? So it could be a convenient excuse, and it depends. If Man United signs somebody rapidly after pulling out of the Edison deal, then that for me would kind of make me think, okay, right, they probably just saw a better opportunity. I'll say this way: I don't think Kone, yeah, no, is like I say, I don't want to like create arguments in the chat, but I think people are going to have a different view. I mean, Kone, if you can play for France in the World Cup, you're obviously not a semi-professional player, are you? You're going to be not too bad. Meniscus knee, yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? And a meniscus knee injury by itself is not massively serious. They quite often resolve themselves in about 4 to 6 weeks. The question is going to be, you know, at what level has the knee deteriorated slightly from that injury, and then you get another injury at some point, and it's like, yeah, that's all they're saying as well. But to be honest, I think it would be a convenient excuse. Like Edison can play football. We've seen him play in the World Cup. He's not injured now. He doesn't really have significant injury issues over his career. If he fails a medical, I think it's like 30% medical, 70% Man United to changing their mind as well. So I would say with this one, the difficulty is which players do you think we've missed out because of the owners? Like Elliot Anderson seemed to express a preference to go to Man City. It would be nice if Man United made a big offer, but the too many was not at the table, was he? So too many wasn't available. I would say Tonali, 100 million seemed a bit expensive. So I suppose that does this mean I suppose the ones that are obvious would be Matheus Fernandes, 85 million. So would you have effectively done Spurs deals then? Because I think the deals that Man United didn't do based on cost was pretty much Spurs transfer window, wasn't it? It was Tonali and it was Matheus Fernandes. So I suppose those would be the deals that we should be disappointed with. Jill said if it's a change of mind, got no issue with it. Could be for one of those market opportunities. I think there's market opportunities, and the names are Sangare and Buwadi. So I don't know. And it says you disagree. You don't think Kone makes the French team tick. I think it's difficult, isn't it? Like if you play in the French midfield, what's your role as a midfielder? You've got Elise, you've got Dembele, you've got Mbappe. You've got such a ridiculous forward line to pass to that I don't know. I would say that the reason why I'm not massively enthusiastic is the price is quite low, and who else is interested in Kone? I don't think he represents the best available midfield players, but I suppose he would represent a way of if you think Man United's priority should be to get lots of different options into the midfield and the squad and try and get if you want to go for quantity rather than quality. Although let's be realistic now, it's not bad quality. I think people are arguing between a very good player and a world class player. Like he's a very good player in the French team, and but he's not going to be. No, it's not too many. He's not Elliot Anderson. I think that's probably the difference here. And I think maybe Man United are looking at trying to go for lots of very good players and players that potentially as well have yet to reach the ceiling that they're capable of. And that's going to be definitely true for Santos. And maybe what we're looking at here is people are a bit dissatisfied with maybe it seems like with the ambition that other clubs are showing at the same time. Yeah, no, I suppose that's a kind of fair point, isn't it? That so they could struggle against world class opponents. Maybe we'll see a bit more, but we'll see how France get on in the next game. And I guess what maybe we'll see. I guess we're probably going to see too many return. But if we don't return, then yeah, maybe we'll see more of Kone as well. No, Kessié, we got linked to him, didn't we, about 5 years ago? I suppose it's potential. I think we were putting together like the biggest shortlist you've ever seen, Daz, and then gradually, I think we're on page 4 now of that shortlist, and we're working our way through it. DHEX, I'm probably going to say that, yeah, at the moment you're going to reserve judgment to the window is complete and our season is through. So you don't think Santos and Kone are worse than Mathis Fernandez? At the moment, yeah, I would say when you've got Santos, Kone, Mathis Fernandez, Alex Scott, I think they're all good. They're all slightly different players. You could probably say that maybe the positive for Fernandez is we've seen a couple of seasons in the Premier League. Santos not so much. Kone again coming from Serie A, so I think people will be a bit skeptical about that. And I think there's different reasons, isn't there, why you'd like certain players. And I think for me, I always thought if Man United are going to go for Santos, then that's absolutely fine. Good player for the future. And you got Komeni, who's a good player now, but also good for the future. It feels like where have you got like where are you going to get the midfielders that are going to be like an Anderson or a Bellingham or someone that's like a different level? And I'm not sure whether Man United are actually going to sign that player. I think we're looking at say Declan Rice, Anderson, Bellingham. That's kind of the level of midfielder you want. But I think Man United are buying players that they hope will eventually get to that level with like Santos. I would say with Kone, Ederson, they're not going to get to that level, are they? They're already mid 20s. They're not going to get to that level, but they could be. It could be if Man United were going to be buying, say, extra players in and around the team. It's going to be, you know, they're not as massive amounts of difference. Have we had any real great midfield displays during the World Cup? I don't really. I would say there's been like I think Bellingham was looking very good against Mexico, and the red card ruined that match. But I suppose in terms of this one, I think we've just seen strikes from distance, haven't we? We've just seen about, let's say, what were Norway doing during the match? It was just probably about 10 minutes where Holland just took control with those two goals. So no, I don't think we've seen dominant. We've seen a lot of attack versus defence. But I think in terms of like dominant midfield displays, I would say with France, then I don't think any single player was like dominating that game, but France just had control of it. So no midfield displays. I don't know. I don't think we've seen anything that's absolutely ridiculous, have we? Yeah, we'll never reduce the debt, will we? That's why I said something similar, Gregory, that if if Manchester United spend big in the transfer window, I don't really care what the players cost because I'd rather Man United spend the money on football and spend it on the players than simply just taking more dividends. And so I think at the moment, if Man United have got an idea they're going to spend 250, 300 million and they spend that, then yeah, I mean, I think Bellingham's been different class. That's really good. I think he's been one of England's best players, and he was starting to kind of hit his stride before he had to start going to defensive duty. But we're going to see, aren't we? And maybe we'll see England versus France, but we're going to see England versus Norway in a probably it's actually tomorrow night, isn't it? So we're going to see how that works. No, this is probably the one thing that's probably going to be, if this is true, Malps, and let's be honest, like it kind of looks true, doesn't it? That it looks like the priority for Manchester United is to make money, and the new stadium seems to be the like whenever we talk about Man United, a lot of us are going right. Where are the good signings coming in? Where's the kind of players that are going to help us get Champions League football? And then the stadium wants us to get excited about some stadium drawings, which we don't even know if it's going to if we don't even know if the images are going to look remotely like that in the future. They bought some land. I don't know if we're supposed to get hyped about that, but it's something that I think people are looking at. I think people just want to see Man United get better signings in. No, the ticket prices will be astronomical. That's the reason. The reason for the new stadium is to make money. I mean, they should have kept their Old Trafford a lot more updated, but they're going to be it's going to be about money, isn't it? Unfortunately. No, I always say most players are going to be too expensive. So if anyone's got any final questions before we wrap up, I will be live with Helgi 6:30, so this won't be a long one. That's what I said. And yeah, we need a new stadium. I don't think Man United fans are going to be happy with the excuse of not spending on the team though. We can't have a new stadium and have a crap team to go in it, can we? I think with the sport, with the sponsorship deals and things Man United can bring in, we should be able to look at that as financing a large percentage of the stadium. And no, Man United will just increase the debt when we'll just be running at even more of a debt, but we'll probably be ripping off fans. I won't be surprised. No, but Bellingham is yeah, certainly doing everything. So yeah, at the moment, it's been like nothing. The window's been nothing, is it? The window is effectively Santos at the moment, and I really hope that we have a here we go for or find out one way or another with Edison. So at the moment, Darlow and Santos, it's hardly something to get excited by, is it? So let me just find your question out. Would you be happy to let Santos and Boadi start games and accept they will learn on the job? I'm okay with that, but some fans get angry. I would suggest, like with this one, if you got one of them playing alongside Mainu, then I guess actually no, you're not talking about starting them both together, are you? I would be happy to let Santos start games, Bawadi start games. One starts, one comes off the bench. I think that also I would say based on the Premier League, I would probably be I would be more I would probably start them more in the Champions League. To be honest, I know that might sound bizarre, but I think the Champions League games might well be easier than some of the Premier League games. So I would suggest that there's enough football for everybody. If Man United did get Buardi by some miracle and Santos, I would be more than happy to start them in domestic cup games, Champions League games, come off the bench of Premier League games. I think Santos is getting close to being there at Chelsea. Like he obviously had very good players ahead of him at Chelsea. And I think Buardi would be good enough as well. Buari didn't look out of place against Casemiro and Bruno Guimaraes, put it that way. Yeah, we got the backup keeper, Darlow. I will be watching that. There will be a short stream before that, and then G Wolf will be doing the watch along if you want to tune in to that one. So surprise on night 58 hasn't come out about the stadium, but not surprised in a way because they're properly working for Glinios. I've not heard anything about the 1958 for ages, actually, ages at all. But and people interested, we signed the Leeds goalkeeper, Darlow, didn't we? I think he's quite old, but he's essentially a backup. I think the thing that Darlow signing means is it probably means that Vitek is going to be sold because he's not going to come as a backup, and it pretty means Bindia is definitely gone. So bit disappointing if Vitek leaves. Bindia has to go. Guys, I'm going to wrap it up. We will be back live 6:30 tonight, around about that time, myself and Helgi. So please get involved then. Should be a good one.